what surprised me about Jimmy, the reason I was so surprised by it is because as great as a player Jimmy is, you don't think of him as like a great scorer. I know he's Jimmy Buckets and all these things, but like you compare him to like a Paul George, a very, very polished scorer. But Jimmy was just getting it done. I don't even know how to explain it. It sometimes wasn't the prettiest 30 or 40, but like he just bullies guys. He just does.
You know who was like that, who I didn't think gets enough credit for it, is Pierce was like that for a long time, where he could not have a great game, but he could catch fire for a quarter, or he could catch fire for 8 minutes, and he would just
get big shots.
He would hit all of a sudden the threes that weren't going in, they started going in. He could bully people like around 12, 10 feet away. And I always thought, like with the Wade Pierce debate, when people are like, Paul Pierce is crazy. He's not anywhere near Dwayne Wade. It's like Paul Pierce was awesome.
I say this all the time because that thing has like become like an actual like meme now, where like people like disrespecting Paul just because like he thinks of himself in D Wade's class, when people don't realize he was like right below that. Like Paul Pierce was a fucking stud, and people forget how good this guy's footwork was, and they don't have players like Paul no more, man. There's the age of like 6'9", big, heavy, small forwards who have their back to the basket, shooting fadeaway twos. Stare down.
Who could play multiple positions. Guard bigger guys, smaller
guys. They don't
guys.
have that, bro. Like now we're all tiny, skinny, lanky, athletic. Like that's kind of more the speed that we're going. Like Paul would cut up in today's NBA, bro. You throw like prime Paul Pierce in today's league, my God, bro.
Well, he would have shot way more threes too, because I think like his third season, we were shooting a lot of threes on the Celts. Like almost like 8, 9 a game. And
was that like the Antoine Walker?
The Antoine, yeah.
Yeah.
They try to game the system because they didn't have a ton of talent. So like, we're going to shoot a lot of threes. People are like, whoa, this is crazy. And now that's kind of what the league's become. But I think he would have fit in.
Yeah, he would have been fine. He could shoot. And Paul, they have this thing. It's more like younger generation, which dominates social media a lot. They didn't see Paul. And Paul's game also wasn't flashy and wasn't loud. So like kids don't grow up YouTubing Paul Pierce. People YouTube D Wade. People know about D Wade, and he's so like still on social media and involved. And where like Paul Pierce is just having drinks on like live streams and having a good time. It's like two different things. Like, but people don't really understand how good Paul is. Like Paul was so nasty. Yeah, he was really good, man.
There's two issues. One is that this internet NBA culture we have now has problems celebrating guys like him or like Ben Wallace, people like that. The other side, which I've always joked about, is the internet, because you can cut anyone into like a 2-minute clip. All of a sudden it can be like, Eddie Curry was a problem. And you just show 2 minutes Eddie Curry highlights, and then that's on TikTok. And you can basically do that with any NBA player. But there's certain guards that seem like they were more like Steve Francis, Stephon Marbury, those type of players that weren't necessarily winning players, but you could cut together awesome highlight packages of them. And I really worry about this whole generation of people that basically think the league started when Kobe won his first 2 titles without Shaq, or when LeBron went to the Heat. It's like, this is a long league that had a lot of great players and a lot of history to it. Your dad was in a million awesome games, and like people don't even remember Dominique at this point. So I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the old guy trying to protect the flame.
That's the problem is we start talking like this and people are like, man, look at these dated motherfuckers just talking about.
And you're only 31.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. But I go to the locker room and I talk to like these young players about like players that they should know. Like we were talking last year in the locker room in Minnesota, and we were talking about like best scorers from Minnesota Timberwolves. I was like, yo, Kevin Martin, y'all sleep on Kevin Martin, could really score. Right. And a lot of guys in the locker room were like, Kevin Martin, who's Kevin Martin? I was like, you don't know who fucking Kevin Martin is? You know what I mean? Right. I was like, you play for the Timberwolves, you don't know who Kevin Martin is? And I'm like, Tom Gugliotta, like all these guys who could like Terrell Brandon, like I'm thinking of all these good, like, and that era of the NBA is like a lot of that's lost with like this new generation. They just like don't tap into, and I guess I did because of my dad. I maybe, I don't know. It's gone.
Well, what you're laying out is the NBA's biggest fear, because it's not just people you're playing with, it's the under 25 generation in general, whether they're actually watching games or whether they're just like my son, who loves sports and plays sports, but doesn't watch games, and gets all of his NBA knowledge through like TikTok and YouTube videos and
2K
slices of things and highlights and 2K.
Yeah.
And 2K ratings. 2K ratings are like incredibly important for my son.
It's the worst thing ever, man, because they're made by a bunch of guys who were picked last in gym class and they're out here making ratings based off of stats when stats only dictate someone's situation. So like you giving someone a 69 rating when he's in a terrible situation and doesn't play, it's just the dumbest thing ever. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's why it's stupid to do that. But kids, they like look at 2K. Like I get this all the time. I'll go to Chipotle and someone be like, yo man, they got to fix your rating. I'm like, brother, I don't give a fuck what Ronnie 2K has me rated. And shout out to Ronnie. I love Ronnie, but no, man, like that stuff's ridiculous. I just, they don't.
Well, this speaks to the Duncan problem that we're now in, where people are like, Tim Duncan, he's fine. That seems to be a thing.
Yeah.
Like Duncan, I had Duncan over Kobe in my book. I still have Duncan over Kobe now. I think both of them are in the top 10 and two of the greatest players I've ever had. But Duncan was a guaranteed 50 wins the entire time he was healthy and didn't give a shit about his stats. And it's nothing. Like, all right, you're going to go through his stats. Oh, he only averaged 19 and 10 that year. It's like, guess who didn't care at all about what his stats were?
And took pay cuts.
Yeah. And guess who won every year, partly because of all the shit he did? Tim Duncan. Yeah. I guarantee he didn't look at his box score at the end of the game or any of that stuff.
No,
I think Jokic is like that. That's what was so funny when
he's
when
exactly
Perk started the
whole
MVP thing, and they were like, "Oh, he's chasing stats." It's like Jokic is chasing stats. Do you guys watch basketball? What's he chasing?
That was sometimes guys do stuff so easily that they make it look like they're really doing that. And there are guys who do chase stats. There's a plethora of guys I can name that I know, and they go out there and play. Like it is based around the numbers they're putting up. And then there's guys like Jokic who he naturally has the ball in his hands all game. He just dominates the game, but he could give a fuck about whether he has to, after the game, guys would say something to him, the locker room, like, yo, you had 50 and 15. Like he'll cut you off like, brother, I don't care. I don't want to know. And he'll like just go lift or something after the game or play video games. Like he's so tuned out of that stuff. He doesn't have Instagram. He doesn't have Twitter. He doesn't want to. He doesn't want to be famous. He literally like goes over and goes to bars and races horses. He does not give a shit about nothing but basketball and horses and his family. It is refreshing. I've never played with anybody like him, man.
I loved when he beat the Lakers for the Western Finals. He just wanted to get off the court. The Nuggets were like, hey, can we celebrate for like a minute? What do you think? He's like, nah, can we just go?
Get out of here,
just want to go to bed.